The officer's hand hovered over the waitress's wrist as every fork in the diner seemed to stop in mid-air. She had only refilled his coffee, only noticed the old photograph tucked inside his notebook, only whispered a name no one in that town had spoken for 23 years. So why did the quiet man in the corner suddenly look like he had seen a ghost? Why did 2 local officers rush to silence her before he could answer? And what truth had been buried so deeply that a simple breakfast order could shake an entire police department? Stay until the end, because the badge on that table was not the one that mattered. The spoon hit the rim of the coffee cup at 7:18 a.m., one thin sound that kept circling the diner after Mara Ellis stopped moving. Her hand held the pot above the quiet officer's table. Steam curled against her knuckles. The man in the faded patrol jacket had gone still, his thumb pressed over a black notebook. He had been writing when she saw it, a creased photo of a younger man with her father's narrow smile. "Where did you get that?" Mara asked. Rain ticked against the front windows. In the kitchen, the grill hissed, but even Nora Bell stopped calling orders. Officer Brent Harlan stepped from the counter. "Mara, walk away from the table." Coffee ran over the cup's white rim. "That man is Thomas Ellis." The older officer lifted his eyes. Not surprise, recognition. Deputy Lyle Mercer moved into the aisle, blocking the kitchen. His damp uniform smelled of rain. "Give the customer room." "He isn't just a customer," Mara said. Harlan's boot left a wet half-moon on the floor. "You don't get to decide that." A fork lowered near the window. Sam Keene stared at the floor. 2 linemen stopped chewing. Nobody stood. The officer closed his notebook. "What is your name?" "Mara Ellis." The skin beside his left eye pulled tight. "Ruth's girl? You knew my mother?" The bell over the door gave a soft chime. Chief Calvin Rusk entered without shaking off his umbrella. He filled the doorway in a gray coat, white hair combed back, face arranged into the patient look people thanked him for. His gaze went first to Harlan, then Mercer, then the notebook. "Mara," Rusk said, "put the coffee down." She set it on the table. The glass clicked hard. "This diner has always been good to my department," Rusk said. Water fell from his umbrella tip. "I'd hate for a misunderstanding to change that." Nora stood behind the counter with a towel twisted between both hands. "Chief, she just asked a question." "Then she can stop asking." The quiet officer slid the notebook closer. "What's in there?" Harlan said. "Notes? About our town? About breakfast?" A nervous laugh died near the pie case. Rusk stopped beside the booth. "Sir, I don't believe we've met." "No," the officer said. "You haven't." "Passing through?" "For now." "Then you won't mind if we let the young lady work." Mara reached toward the photograph. Harlan caught her wrist, not hard enough to bruise, but firmly enough that every face in the diner turned away. The spoon on the saucer settled. The quiet officer looked at Harlan's hand. "Take your hand off her." Harlan released Mara. Her skin kept the shape of his fingers. Rusk leaned down. "Some families spend years outrunning a story. Yours should be grateful people stopped telling it." Mara's throat tightened. "My father didn't run." The old officer's thumb shifted. For 1 second, the photograph showed fully. Thomas Ellis beside the railroad bridge, dated October 17th, 2001. Rusk saw it too. His face lost its softness before he could put it back. Outside, a patrol car rolled to the curb. Mercer glanced toward the window, fingers brushing the radio at his shoulder. The quiet officer folded the photograph and tucked it inside the notebook. Then he said, "Chief Rusk, we need to talk about the bridge." Mara unlocked the diner at 5:42 before Mill Creek had color. The key stuck. She lifted the door by the handle, turned with her shoulder, and felt the frame give with a tired pop. Cold air followed her inside, smelling of leaves and diesel. In the glass, her reflection wore yesterday's ponytail and a blue dress with one pocket torn at the seam. "Come on," she whispered. The lights flickered over the counter. The pie case hummed. Mara tied on her apron, then touched the inside pocket before the filters. The photograph was there. Thomas Ellis stood in it beside Ruth, one arm around her shoulders, the other holding a toddler with a fist full of his tie. Someone had folded the picture through his face years ago. Mara had flattened it so often the paper felt soft as cloth. At 6:03, the phone rang. "Mara?" Her mother's voice came thin through the receiver. "Did you leave the blue pills on the sink?" "Beside the water glass. I wrote Thursday on the cap. It says Monday." Mara closed her eyes. The grill warmed with a metallic tick. "Then I used the wrong cap. Take the blue one now." A pause. "Your father hated diner coffee. He said that every morning and still drank 2 cups. You were too little." Dawn gathered at the last window, gray and low. "I have to open," Mara said. "Don't be late home." "I won't." By 6:30, Nora Bell came through the back, silver hair damp from rain, a crate of eggs against her hip. "You look like you slept in the walk-in." "I slept in my bed for almost 4 hours." "Luxury. Ruth okay?" She knew what day it wasn't. Nora turned the coffee machine on and let the first bitter smell roll through the diner. "Eat something before church." Mara set mugs open side down along the counter. Each one made a wooden thud. Sam Keene arrived at 6:47, shoulders rounded inside a brown canvas jacket, cap pulled low. He took the booth nearest the last window. "Morning, Miss Mara." "Morning, Sam." "Usual?" "If Nora's eggs don't fight back." Nora called. "They only fight men who complain." Sam's mouth twitched. Mara poured his coffee with the handle turned toward his right hand. Her father had noticed those things too, according to people who remembered him before they decided not to. Mr. Peel slid onto a stool and nodded at Mara's apron pocket. "Still carrying that old picture?" Her fingers went to the cloth. "It doesn't weigh much." "Some things do. Your mama would feel better if you let the dead rest." The road workers at table 3 lowered their voices. Sam stared into his cup. Mara placed a menu in front of Peel. "Pancakes or toast?" He cleared his throat. "Toast?" At 7:05, rain thickened. Mara wiped the counter, refilled sugar jars, and counted the cash drawer twice. The electric bill was due Friday. The photograph warmed against her waist every time she bent. The bell over the door rang. A man in an old patrol jacket stepped inside, rain on his shoulders, gray hair cut close, face lined without softness. He paused like he was measuring the room. Counter, exits, kitchen door, last booth. Mara slipped the photograph deeper into her pocket and stood. "Anywhere you like," she said. His eyes passed over her name tag. Then he chose the booth beside Sam Keene, facing the door. At 7:11, 2 cruisers rolled past the diner windows, slow enough for their tires to whisper through puddles. Mara felt the room notice before she looked up. Officer Brent Harlan came in first, 38, broad-shouldered, rain shining on his hat. Deputy Lyle Mercer followed, older and narrower, one hand worrying the radio on his chest. "Morning, ladies," Harlan said. "Coffee still free for people who keep this town safe?" Nora set a plate under the heat lamp. "Coffee is $2. Harlan laughed and took the stool nearest the register. His wet boot crossed the line Mara had just mopped. A dark print opened on the pale floor. Mara reached for the pot. "What can I get you?" "Smile, for starters." Mercer slid onto the next stool. "Brent? What? I'm improving service." Harlan tapped the air beside Mara's name tag. "How's Ruth? Still saying Detective Ellis is coming home?" The fork in Sam Keen's hand stopped halfway to his eggs. Mara poured. Coffee splashed into Harlan's saucer. "My mother is fine." "Good. Hate to see folks stuck in the past." Harlan glanced at the quiet officer in the last booth. "Town's changed. Most learned that." The stranger did not move. Only his eyes lifted. "2 breakfasts," Mercer said softly. Nora's spatula clanged against the grill. "You'll get what's on the board." Harlan leaned back, rainwater dripping from his coat. "Chief Rusk says this diner is the heart of Mill Creek. Says a heart ought to beat steady." Mr. Peel nodded too quickly. "Chief knows this town." "He does," Harlan said. "Kept it together." Mara wiped the spill. "Toast or biscuits?" "Biscuits. Don't make them dry." "Last time you ate 4, Nora called. A few men near the window chuckled, small and careful. Mara moved to Sam's booth. "Warm up?" Sam covered his cup with his palm. "Not yet." "You okay?" He glanced at Harlan, then at the rain. "Road by the old bridge gets slick this time of year." Mara stilled. "The railroad bridge?" "Sam," Harlan called. "You preaching weather reports now?" Sam lowered his hand. "Just talking roads." "Roads don't need ghosts on them." Mercer stared at his paper placemat, where a child had drawn a crooked pumpkin in orange crayon. Mara set the pot on Sam's table. "What did you see there?" Sam's lips parted. The fluorescent light buzzed above the pie case. Then Harlan's chair scraped. "Mara," he said, "you got customers." The quiet officer folded his menu. "I can wait." Harlan turned. "Didn't ask you." "No," the stranger said. "You didn't." Mercer reached for his water glass and missed it once. Nora came through the pass with 2 plates. "Brent, leave my waitress alone." "Your waitress keeps asking questions that don't serve breakfast." "She asked Sam about a road." "She asked about a story her daddy started and never finished." Harlan looked at Mara. "Some men don't disappear because of crime. Some disappear because they're cowards." The room lost its morning noises. Mara's hand went to her apron pocket. Sam looked at her then. "I drove that bridge road the night he vanished," he said. Harlan's fork stopped over his biscuits. Mercer whispered, "Sam, don't." Sam swallowed. "And I wasn't alone out there." The quiet officer opened his notebook. Ward's notebook opened with a dry crack. Mara stood between Sam's booth and the counter, coffee pot cooling in her hand. Rain had slowed. Harlan's fork hovered over his biscuits. Mercer kept one elbow on the counter, fingers tight around a napkin until it tore. "Say that again," the officer said. Sam Keen rubbed the rim of his cup. "I said I was on the bridge road." "Date?" October 17th, 2001. The pen moved once. Black ink shone under the lights. Harlan pushed his plate back. Sam's memory gets colorful when he wants attention. "I don't want attention," Sam said. "Then eat." The officer did not glance at Harlan. "Time?" "Near midnight. I was hauling lumber from Mayfield. Fog was low. Cab heater stuck on high. Window down." Mara smelled burnt toast from the kitchen, sharp under the coffee. Nora kept her eyes on Sam. "What did you see?" Mara asked. Sam's cap sat beside his plate, dark with rain. 2 cars, 1 county cruiser, 1 sedan, parked without lights by the old trestle. Harlan laughed. "Half the county parked there in high school." "You weren't in high school," Sam said. The chair legs screeched. Harlan stood. The quiet officer lifted one hand. Let him finish. Harlan's mouth hardened. Who are you exactly? A man eating toast. You writing a travel diary? Something like that. Mercer leaned toward Harlan. Brent, Chief said breakfast, not a scene. Mara caught that. The officer did too. His pen marked beside Mercer's name tag. Harlan saw it. You got a problem with local law? I have a problem with interrupted statements. The toaster popped. Nora flinched. Sam's voice dropped. I saw Tom Ellis beside the cruiser. He had a folder under his coat. He looked angry, not drunk, not lost. He was talking to someone in a dark raincoat. Mara's fingers tightened. Was he hurt? No, honey. He was standing. Harlan stepped into the aisle. The wet print from his boot smeared under him. Enough. The quiet officer looked at Mara's name tag. Miss Ellis, may I ask you one question? She nodded. Do you still have anything your father kept from work? Harlan's hand hit the table. The spoon beside the cup jumped and rang against the saucer. You don't question her, Harlan said. The officer watched the trembling spoon until it settled. Then you answer. I don't answer to drifters in costume. The diner door opened. Wind pushed in the smell of wet leaves. Nobody entered. Mara set the pot down. I have his badge box, some letters. My mother wouldn't let me throw them away. Anything sealed? Her breath caught. A brown envelope, no return address. Sam looked up sharply. Harlan turned toward Mercer. Call Rusk. Mercer didn't move. Lyle. The deputy touched his radio, but his thumb did not press the button. The quiet officer wrote 3 letters at the top of the page. T.E. Rain slid down his sleeve and landed on the notebook. The ink blurred at the date. What is your name? Mara asked him. For the first time, he closed the notebook halfway. Elias Ward, he said. Sam's cup clicked against his teeth. Harlan went pale. Elias Ward slipped the notebook into his damp jacket. Now, he said quietly, I think that envelope matters more than breakfast. Mara had heard her father's name spoken with pity, with suspicion, with the soft town voice people used when they wanted a wound covered. She had never heard it make a police officer go pale. Harlan's hand slid from the table. You don't know what you're talking about. Elias Ward sat back. Then correct me. The smell of scorched toast hung over the counter. Mara reached for the coffee pot, but the handle felt slick. She poured into Ward's cup and missed. Brown coffee flooded the saucer, then crawled toward his notebook. Sorry. She grabbed a napkin. Ward put 2 fingers on the notebook. It's all right. Harlan stepped closer. Mara, leave him alone. I'm serving coffee. You're stirring up a dead man's lie. Nora came from behind the counter. Brent, sit down or pay and go. He didn't look at her. Chief Rusk won't like this. At Rusk's name, Mercer's shoulders tightened. He stared at the cup as if the spill had drawn a map. Mara lowered her voice. Mr. Ward, how did you know my mother's name? Ward looked to the rain-striped window, then to Sam. Because Thomas Ellis said it the night before he vanished. The coffee pot became too heavy. Mara set it down. What did he say? Ward answered after the grill hissed twice. He said if anything happened, Ruth would know he hadn't left by choice. A chair scraped near the pie case. Mr. Peel stood, then seemed to forget why. Harlan pointed toward the kitchen. That's enough. No, Ward said. She asked me a question. And I'm telling you not to answer. You have that authority? Harlan leaned over the table. In this town, yes. Even Mercer looked at him. Mara's apron pocket brushed the counter. My mother put his boots by the back door every October because she said rain made him come home late. If you know something, don't make me beg in front of people who watched us suffer." Ward's face changed. "I won't." Harlan caught her wrist before she could reach for the notebook. The grip was quick, public, meant to be seen, not crushing. Worse than that. Measured. The diner sound disappeared. The fan, the clink of silverware, Nora's breath. Mara looked at his fingers around her skin. They were warm. "Let go," she said. "Walk away." Ward's voice cut in low. "Take your hand off her." Harlan kept his eyes on Mara. "Retired men should keep their advice to themselves." "I said take it off." Mercer stood halfway. "Brent." Harlan released her with a small shove. 4 pale marks stayed on her wrist, filling with color. Ward rose. He took a worn leather case from inside his jacket and opened it only enough for Harlan to see. Harlan blinked. "That expired?" "Long enough to teach you manners." "Federal manners?" Harlan said too fast. Sam's head came up. Nora's towel stopped moving. Ward slid the case away. "Sit down, officer." Harlan's radio crackled. Mercer turned toward the window. A cruiser was pulling in. Then another. Mara saw the diner sign reflected in the second windshield, red letters shaking in the rain. Her wrist still burned where Harlan had held it. From the doorway, before the bell even finished ringing, Chief Calvin Rusk's voice filled the room. "Miss Ellis," he said, calm as a church usher, "step away from that table." Chief Rusk did not raise his voice. That made the room smaller. Mara stood beside Ward's booth with coffee drying on her fingers and Harlan's marks warming on her wrist. The bell over the door swung once, twice, then went still. Behind Rusk, rain silvered 2 patrolmen outside. "Step away," Rusk said. Nora came from the counter. "Chief, she hasn't done anything." "I'm trying to keep a private matter from becoming public." "It already is," Ward said. Harlan pointed at Mara. "She harassed a customer. I asked a question and ignored the answer." Rusk crossed the floor. "Miss Ellis, your family has been through enough. I won't let you embarrass yourself over breakfast." The words landed gently. That was what made them cut. "My father's photograph is in his notebook." Rusk's eyes flicked to Ward. "Then perhaps Mr. Ward can explain why he carries keepsakes that upset a waitress." Ward's mouth opened. "No," Harlan said. "She apologizes first." "For what?" Nora asked. "For creating a disturbance." Mercer stood near the register, blocking the kitchen. His jaw worked once. Mara felt heat from the coffee machine at her back, damp cold at her shoes, the rough edge of her name badge twisted on her apron. Harlan stepped close enough that his belt brushed the booth. "Say it." Ward's chair scraped. Rusk raised one finger. "Mr. Ward." The older man stopped. Mara looked to Sam Keene. The old trucker held his cap against his chest. His mouth opened. Then he lowered his eyes. "I'm sorry your breakfast was interrupted," Myra said. Harlan smiled. "No. Try again." Nora whispered. "Mara, don't." Rusk's voice softened. "It will be easier if you cooperate." Mara took the crooked name badge between 2 fingers. The pin had bent. Metal scratched her thumb. "I'm sorry," she said, looking at the room instead of him, "for asking about Thomas Ellis where people could hear." Harlan leaned down. "And?" "And for making Officer Harlan feel he had to touch me to stop me." The sentence sat on the tile. Mercer's eyes closed for half a second. Nora's towel dropped. Harlan's smile vanished. "Chief?" Rusk came close enough that Mara smelled mint and rainwater. "Miss Ellis, you are confusing patients with permission." Ward stood. "Chief, you've heard enough." I heard an officer demand an apology from a woman he put hands on. Harlan turned. You want to come down to the station, too? Ward looked at the spilled coffee, then at the notebook beneath his palm. If she goes, I go. That can be arranged, Rusk said. Behind the counter, Nora lifted her phone. Harlan saw it. Put that away. I'm checking the time. With the camera open? Her fingers trembled, but she did not lower it. Harlan caught the edge of Mara's apron. The name badge jerked sideways again, hanging crooked over her heart. Ward moved. Mercer moved too, blocking Harlan's shoulder. Brent, don't! Rusk's radio chirped. Outside, red light swept across the rain-dark windows. Miss Ellis, the chief said, you are coming with us to clear this up. Her badge swung once from the bent pin. Ward slid the worn photograph beneath his hand, shielding it from Harlan's view. And in the corner of Nora's raised phone, a small red dot kept blinking. The red light from Nora's phone blinked above the counter. Miss Ellis, Chief Rusk said, hands where I can see them. Mara almost laughed. Both hands were empty. One smelled of coffee. The other held 4 fading marks around the wrist. I'm not refusing. No, Harlan said behind her. You're performing. The diner watched without moving. Sam Keene twisted his cap until the brim bent. Ward stood beside the booth. Chief, before you make a mistake, identify me properly. Rusk kept his eyes on Mara. I know what this is. You don't. Harlan took cuffs from his belt. The metal opened with a clean click. Mara felt the room lean away. Nora stepped from the counter. Calvin, this is my diner. She can return when she remembers how to behave. Ward reached into his jacket. Harlan snapped. Don't. Slowly, Ward brought out a worn leather case. Look at it. Rusk glanced once. His face did not change, but Mercer's did. Old papers, Rusk said. Federal inspectors don't retire from memory. Harlan laughed. Retired nobody thinks he's still important. Mara turned her head. He knows about the bridge. Harlan caught her elbow and pulled it behind her. The first cuff closed around her left wrist. Cold bit through her skin. The coffee cup she had held minutes earlier still steamed on Ward's table. Mara stared at that steam while the metal tightened, as if looking away could keep her standing. Mara, Nora said. I'm okay. She wasn't. Her fingers could not find each other behind her back. The second cuff missed once, then snapped shut. Rusk addressed the room. Temporary protective detention. No one needs to make it something else. Nora held up her phone. Say that again for the recording. Harlan turned. Give me that. Ward stepped between them. Do not touch her. Rusk lifted his umbrella. Mr. Ward, remain available for questions. I'm coming. No, you are not. If you take her in on a fabricated disturbance, I am a witness. You're a traveler with a notebook. Ward looked at him. And you're still using the same sentence you used in 2001. Mercer's throat moved. Harlan pushed Mara toward the door. The rubber mat slid under her shoes. Rain breathed in, cold and leafy, and the bell trembled above her head. As she passed Ward's booth, she saw the photograph half covered beneath his palm. Please, she said, don't let them take that. Ward covered the picture fully. They won't. Outside, the cuffs were colder. Rain dotted her cheeks, collar, and bent name badge. A cruiser door stood open, smelling of vinyl. Sam Keene had followed to the threshold. He did not step into the rain. I saw him standing, Sam said. Harlan turned. Go back inside. Sam's voice cracked. Thomas Ellis was standing when I drove by. Rusk leaned close to Mara's ear. Your father made people choose sides, too. The words were soft enough that only she heard. Harlan guided her into the cruiser. The door shut, muting the diner into a square of yellow light. Through the rain-streaked window, Ward remained inside, one hand on the photograph, the other sliding his notebook toward Nora's phone. Mercer bent near the open door and picked something from the wet floor. Mara's crooked name badge had fallen there, face up in the rain. The holding cell had no clock. Mara noticed before the door finished closing. The room was 6 steps long, 4 steps wide, painted the color of old milk. A bench ran along one wall, cold through her dress. Above the ceiling, water moved through a pipe and dropped with a soft metallic tick. "Can I call my mother?" she asked. Harlan stood outside the bars with her name badge pinched between 2 fingers. "After the chief speaks with you." "She's sick. She expects me home after lunch." "Then you should have thought of that before making a scene." Mercer stood behind him, damp hair stuck to his forehead. Rusk appeared at the end of the hall. "Brent, give us a minute." Harlan tossed the badge onto the booking desk. It slid, clicked, and stopped beside blank forms. Rusk waited until his footsteps faded. "Mara, this can still be simple." "Let me call my mother." "You were detained for disorderly conduct and interfering with officers in duty." "I was serving coffee." "You were provoking an elderly man with family allegations." "You mean Elias Ward?" Rusk's jaw shifted once. "You don't know him." "Neither do you, apparently." The chief smiled as if forgiving a child. "Your father had that same habit, mistaking defiance for courage. My father was alive at the bridge." Rusk turned toward Mercer. "Deputy, did she request water?" Mercer blinked. "No, sir." "Bring her some." Rusk stepped closer to the bars. "Stories get people hurt, Mara." "My mother knows I'm here?" "She knows you work at the diner." The pipe ticked again. Mara counted 3 drops. That wasn't an answer. "It was the only one you need." He left without closing the hall door. Cold air carried dust and burnt coffee. Mercer returned with a paper cup. His hand shook enough to ripple the water. "Set it down," Mara said. He pushed it through the slot. "Drink." "I want my phone call." "I heard you." "Then do something." He looked toward the hallway. "You don't understand how things work here." "No, I think I'm starting to." His fingers curled around the bars. "Your dad came to my mother's house once. Fixed her porch light because she was scared of the dark." "Why are you telling me that?" Mercer's lips parted. A radio crackled from the desk. He straightened. "Drink the water." At the diner, Ward had not left. Nora locked the door after the crowd left in rain and fear. Sam Keene sat at the counter, hands around an untouched mug. Ward placed Thomas Ellis's photograph flat on the table. "Keep the recording," he told Nora. "I sent it to myself." "Send it outside this county." Nora swallowed. "Who are you?" Ward looked at the picture. "Someone who should have come back sooner." Sam whispered. "You knew Tom?" "Yes." Ward turned the notebook so they could see the page. October 17th, 2001. Bridge Road, County Cruiser, Sedan, TE carrying folder. "Rusk will try to make this about Mara's behavior," Ward said. "And the rest?" Sam asked. Ward looked through the rain-streaked window. "The rest starts with what Thomas Ellis left behind." Back in the cell, Mara lifted the paper cup. The water tasted like cardboard and metal. She listened to the pipe count time for her, one drop after another, while footsteps returned down the hall. Nora's phone screen had a crack running from the corner to the speaker, but Harlan's voice came through clean. She asked about a story her daddy started and never finished. Sam Keene sat at the locked diner counter. Chairs stood upside down on tables. Rainwater pooled where Mara's shoes had dragged. Ward listened without blinking as Nora played the clip. Harlan's voice repeated from the tiny speaker. Some men don't disappear because of crime. Some disappear because they're cowards. Sam's throat worked. He knew Tom had started something. Ward took the phone carefully. He knew the phrasing. What phrasing? Nora asked. Ward set it beside the photograph. Thomas used those words in a draft report. The story they started won't finish with me. Only 4 people should have seen it. Was Harlan one of them? He was a boy then. Then who told him? The neon open sign hummed through the door was locked. Thomas Ellis did not leave Mill Creek, Ward said. He was gathering evidence on officers who turned arrests into favors, debts, and control. Changed statements. Missing complaints. Sam lowered his head. I should have stopped. You were driving in fog. I saw the cars. And tonight you said it aloud. Nora slid into the booth. Why are you dressed like a patrolman? People talk around uniforms they think they understand. And what are you really? A retired federal inspector who was told in 2002 that the Ellis file had no surviving witness. Sam stared. But you were the witness. One of them. Ward left Thomas Ellis's photograph visible under the overhead light. Nora picked up her phone. I'm sending this to my niece in Lexington. Send it to 2 people, Ward said. Just the file. My hands are shaking. Put the phone down for 10 seconds. She did. The device rattled against the table. Sam pointed at the notebook. You knew the date before I said it. October 17th, 2001. Thomas called from a payphone at 9:36 p.m. He had a brown envelope and a meeting near the bridge. If I didn't hear from him by morning, I was to call Ruth. Did you? Nora whispered. Ward's hand closed once. No. At the station, Mercer came back to Mara's cell with a folded paper cup. I already have water, she said. This one's coffee. It's gray. Machine's old. She took it because her fingers were cold. Mercer kept his voice low. Did your father keep papers at home? Mara watched him. Why? Because if he did, don't tell Brent. Don't tell the chief. You work for them. He looked down the hall. My mother still has the porch light he fixed. Mercer swallowed. There was a brown envelope mentioned tonight. My mother has one. His face changed. Harlan's voice cut in. Lyle. Mercer stepped back, spilling coffee over Mara's fingers. It was lukewarm, but she flinched. At the diner, Nora's phone buzzed. Sent. Ward stood. Now we find the envelope before Rusk does. Sam reached for his cap, then paused. I'll drive, he said. Ward looked at him. You sure? Sam put the cap on. I've been driving away from that bridge for 23 years. Nora unlocked the diner door, and cold rain breathed into the room as Ward lifted Thomas Ellis's photograph from the table. At 9:14 p.m., the road to the Ellis house was black except for Sam Keene's headlights and yellow line shaking under rain. Ward sat in front with Thomas's photograph inside his coat. Nora was in back, phone in one hand, cracked handle in the other. Ruth won't open for strangers, Sam said. She'll open for Mara's name, Nora answered. Ward watched the fields. Don't use mine first. The house stood at the end of a gravel lane. Ruth Ellis opened after Nora knocked twice, a blanket around her shoulders, eyes sharp. Where is my daughter? At the station, Nora said. She's not hurt. Ruth caught the frame. Then she saw Ward. Rain slid from his jacket onto the boards. I know you. No, ma'am. Yes, from a phone call. You said you were sorry. Ward did not answer. Ruth stepped back. Then come in and be sorry where it's warm. The house smelled of lemon cleaner, old paper, and medicine. A blue pill bottle sat beside a glass, Thursday written on the cap. Ruth led them to a closet. Tom said if a man came asking about a bridge and an envelope, he had to say the second half. Ward's voice dropped. The river keeps what the town won't. Ruth closed her eyes. I hated that sentence. She took down a shoebox. Inside were receipts, a badge case, letters, and a brown envelope. Nora's phone buzzed. My niece says Helen Price called back. State oversight. She wants footage. Ward took out his phone. Helen, it's Elias Ward. A woman's voice cut through. You had better not be calling about Mill Creek. I found Thomas Ellis's envelope. A pause. Tell me Mara Ellis is safe. She's in Rusk's station. Do not open that envelope without me on video. If Rusk is still chief, assume his desk is already moving. At the station, Mara heard that same desk drawer open through the wall. Rusk's office door was not fully closed. A stripe of light crossed the hall. Harlan's shadow moved through it. She'll say we denied a call, Harlan said. She can say the moon belongs to her, Rusk replied. Paper decides what happened. A pen clicked. Mara rose. I can hear you. The voices stopped. Mercer appeared carrying a folder against his chest, face gray under fluorescent light. Chief wants your statement. I want my call. He glanced back, then let the folder slip from beneath his arm. It landed near the office threshold. Mara, he whispered, read what's on top. The folder was too far to reach, but the upper sheet had slid free. Incident Supplement, October 18th, 2001. Reporting Officer, Calvin Rusk. Below it, in faded type, one phrase stood out. Subject Thomas Ellis displayed erratic intent to abandon duty and family. Mara gripped the bars. He wrote it the next day. Mercer's lips barely moved. There's a copy in archives. Not for long. Harlan called, Lyle. Mercer kicked the folder under the bench outside the cell. Back at the Ellis house, Ruth cut the tape with sewing scissors. The sound was tiny, like an insect in the wall. Inside lay a cassette, 4 reports, and a note in Thomas's hand. Ward read the first line and stopped. What? Nora asked. He turned the page toward Ruth. If I disappear, do not let them turn my silence into guilt. Outside, tires crunched at the end of the gravel lane. Tires stopped outside Ruth Ellis's house at 9:37 p.m. Ward closed Thomas's note between 2 fingers. Rain tapped the kitchen window. Nora lowered her phone. Please tell me that's Helen Price. A dark sedan idled in the gravel lane. A woman stepped out under a black umbrella, silver streak in her short hair. That's Helen, Ward said. Ruth held the chair back. Then why do I feel worse? Because she means this is real. Helen Price entered without coffee. 54, compact, sharp-eyed. She carried a leather folder and rain on both sleeves. You should have called me before breakfast, she told Ward. I didn't know breakfast was going to open a grave. Where is Mara? Rusk's station. On what charge? Nora said. Whatever they're typing. Helen watched 20 seconds of Nora's recording. Send me the original. It's already out of county. At 9:51, they entered Mill Creek Police Department. The lobby smelled of wet wool, cleaner, and burned coffee. Mercer rose fast. His chair struck the wall. Harlan stepped from Rusk's office. Lobby's closed, Harlan said. Helen opened her credentials. Not to me. Rusk appeared, tie loose, smile ready. Ms. Price, this is unexpected. Most oversight visits are. It's a simple local disturbance. Then release Mara Ellis. We're documenting. Ward stepped forward, jacket dripping on tile. Document me too. Harlan sneered. We did. Retired nobody. Ward took the worn leather case from his jacket, opened it, and placed it on the counter. The lights struck the faded seal. Mercer stood straight. Harlan's mouth closed. Rusk stared until the air changed. Elias Ward, Helen said, former federal inspector attached to the Ellis inquiry. In the cell corridor, Mara gripped the bars. She could see Ward's sleeve, Helen's dark shoes, Harlan's hand frozen at his belt. My father? Mara called. Helen turned. Mara Ellis? Yes. I'm Helen Price. I'm here to get you a phone call, counsel, and your record corrected. Rusk gave a small laugh. Let's not dramatize. Helen placed Nora's recording, Ruth's envelope, and Mercer's folder on the counter. Chief, your officer's contact with her wrist is on video. Your 2001 supplement is here. Thomas Ellis's sealed statement is in that envelope. Choose your next sentence carefully. The station fan clicked overhead. Harlan said, That old paper doesn't prove. Officer Harlan, Helen cut in. Step away from the evidence. He didn't move. Ward's voice was quiet. Brent. Something in the name, spoken without rank, made Harlan obey. Rusk looked at Mercer. Deputy, escort Miss Ellis out. Mercer unlocked the cell with fingers that missed the keyhole once. The door opened with a scrape. Mara stepped into the hall, knees stiff, one wrist red, the other smelling faintly of metal. Ward did not reach for her. He only moved aside so she could walk out on her own. Helen held up the note. Mara read the first line. If I disappear, do not let them turn my silence into guilt. Nora placed Mara's bent name badge in her palm. We found it in the rain, Nora said. Mara closed her fingers around the badge until the pin pressed into her skin. Helen looked at Rusk. Now, Chief, we are going to talk about the bridge. By noon the next day, the county hearing room had run out of chairs. Mara sat at the front table with Nora on her left and Helen Price on her right. The room smelled of damp coats, floor polish, and coffee left too long in a metal urn. Outside the tall windows, October light lay flat on the courthouse steps. Harlan sat across the aisle in a dark shirt without his badge. Mercer sat behind him, hands folded until his knuckles looked paper white. Rusk had chosen the end chair, where everyone had to pass him to reach the microphone. Judge Alina Brooks, 58, narrow glasses low on her nose, adjusted the recorder. Beside her, Marcus Vale clicked a pen. This is a preliminary public review, Judge Brooks said. No one here is above the questions. Harlan leaned in. Miss Ellis has a history of emotional claims about her father. Nora's shoe touched Mara's under the table. Helen did not look up. Noted as accusation, not fact. Nora lifted her phone. May I play the recording? The original file is preserved, Helen said. The speaker crackled. Harlan's voice filled the room. Some men don't disappear because of crime. Some disappear because they're cowards. The back rows shifted. Someone coughed once and stopped. Judge Brooks turned to Harlan. How did you know that phrase had been associated with Thomas Ellis? I didn't. You spoke it. It's common. Ward stood from the second row in a plain gray coat. Not in the Ellis file. Helen slid a copy forward. The same wording appears in a 2001 draft statement, never released to the family. Sam Keene rose in the aisle. His cap was in both hands. Mr. Keene, Judge Brooks said, you requested to speak. Sam reached the microphone. Marcus lowered it. I drove the bridge road that night, Sam said. His fingers crushed the cap brim until a seam popped. I saw Detective Ellis by a cruiser. He had a folder under his coat. I saw another car. I kept driving. Harlan stared at the wall. "A week later, Rusk came to the mill," Sam said. "Told me people who misremembered roads could lose contracts. I had a mortgage. My wife was sick. So I shut up." Sam turned halfway toward Mara. "Your mama asked me once if I knew anything. I told her no." Mara looked at the torn seam on his cap. "Why today?" He lowered it. "Because yesterday your badge was lying in the rain, and I stepped over it." The room made a sound too small to be called speech. Rusk leaned in. "Mr. Keene's memory is burdened by guilt," Ward said. "Guilt doesn't create archived documents." Helen opened Thomas's envelope. The cassette lay sealed in plastic beside the reports. Judge Brooks looked at Mercer. "Deputy Mercer, did you place a 2001 supplement where Miss Ellis could see it?" "Yes," Mercer said. Rusk's pen stopped tapping. "Why?" Mercer looked at Mara's red wrist. "Because she asked for a phone call and we gave her paperwork. Because the chief said paper decides what happened. Because Detective Ellis fixed my mother's porch light and I let his daughter sit in a cell without a clock." Judge Brooks removed her glasses. Harlan pushed back his chair. "This is a circus." "No," Helen said. "It is a record." Across the aisle, Rusk sat straight, but the pen in his hand had gone still over a blank page. The projector needed 3 tries before Thomas Ellis's report filled the wall. Rainwater dried under the chairs. The old cassette sat in a clear sleeve beside Helen Price's folder, small enough for a pocket, heavy enough to pull every face toward it. Judge Brooks looked over her glasses. "Proceed." Helen clicked the remote. Supplement, signed by Calvin Rusk on October 18, 2001. Rusk's pen tapped once. Subject Thomas Ellis displayed erratic intent to abandon duty and family. Mara read the line. Her mother had spent years setting a plate aside on storm nights because of words like those. Ward stood near the wall. Thomas never used the word abandon. Harlan shifted. "You can't know every word a dead man used." Ward turned. "I knew the man who called me from a payphone because he didn't trust his station." Helen nodded to Marcus. He pressed play. Static scraped through the speakers. Then Thomas Ellis's voice came thin and close. "Ruth, if this gets to you, I did not leave. Mara is asleep in the yellow room. Tell her I came home every night I could." Mara's hand found the table edge. The tape hissed. "I have reports, names, and payments. Rusk knows. Ward knows part of it. If I make the bridge, this ends tomorrow." Static swallowed the next words. A door slammed on the tape. Then another voice, younger than now but unmistakable, said, "Tom, put the folder down." Rusk's pen stopped. Helen paused the recording. The signature behind him waited, black and neat. Judge Brooks said, "Chief Rusk, is that your voice?" Rusk looked at the cassette. "It may be." "Answer clearly." "I was at the Bridge Road in an official capacity." Harlan leaned forward. "Chief?" "Sit down," Rusk said. Harlan obeyed. Helen advanced the slide. Detective Ellis arranged to deliver a folder to Inspector Ward. He never arrived. The next morning, Rusk authored a supplement calling him absent by choice. "This isn't trial," Rusk said. "No," Judge Brooks replied. "It is review." Mara stood. "Where is he?" No one answered quickly enough. Ward looked down. Rusk rubbed his thumb over the pen clip. "I don't know." Mara walked to the microphone. "Don't say my father's name if you're going to hide behind paper." Rusk's face tightened. "Your father was in over his head." "He was standing," Sam said from the back. The final page appeared. Below the typed lie sat Rusk's signature beside an approval stamp. Ward spoke quietly. "That stamp ended inquiries before families could ask questions." Judge Brooks looked at Harlan. "Who told you the coward phrase?" Harlan swallowed. "I heard it around the station." "From whom?" His eyes moved to Rusk. The pen dropped from Rusk's hand and rolled across the table. It sounded louder than the cassette. Mara stared at the signature. "You made my mother wait for a man you had already buried under a sentence." Ward set Thomas's photograph beside the cassette. In the old picture, her father stood by the bridge. Judge Brooks spoke into the microphone. "Thomas Ellis's disappearance is reopened, and all prior character findings are suspended pending review." Outside, courthouse bells struck 3, and Mara realized the sound was not ending anything. It was counting what came next. Mara returned to the diner 3 days after the hearing, not because Mill Creek had become kinder, but because eggs still needed cracking, and Ruth still needed medicine. At 6:20 a.m., Nora handed her a clean apron. The bent name badge had been straightened as much as metal allowed. It still leaned over her heart. "You don't have to work the front," Nora said. "I do." Someone had taped a note to the glass. "We are sorry." Someone else had crossed out "we" and written "I." Mara flipped the sign to open. The first hour passed in careful voices. Mr. Peel left exact change. Sam Keene sat in his booth with a new cap, the torn one folded beside him. At 8:05, Helen Price entered with Judge Brooks and Marcus Vail. Ward came last, no uniform jacket, just a gray coat. Nora wiped the same clean spot twice. "Coffee?" "Please," Helen said, "and a table big enough for rules." Mara brought 4 mugs. Helen opened the folder. "Harlan is suspended. Rusk is on leave. State investigators took the 2001 file." Nora exhaled. A beginning, pretending to be an ending. "It is," Mara said. Judge Brooks folded her hands. "You were asked what remedy you wanted. You did not answer yesterday." Mara looked at the aisle where Mercer had blocked her path. "I don't want a speech from them." "No one offered one," Marcus said. "I don't want my father turned into a statue either. He forgot birthdays when cases ran late and burned grilled cheese." Ward's mouth moved, not quite a smile. Mara took a small card from her apron pocket. "I want complaints to leave this building," she said. "Not die at the same desk where they're made. I want body camera audits chosen outside Mill Creek. I want detainees given phone calls on record with the time written down. I want witnesses protected from losing work because they spoke." Sam lowered his eyes to the torn cap. Helen wrote without interrupting. "And every officer who serves this town," Mara continued, "sits through training where the first rule is that no badge makes a person smaller." The diner door opened. Mercer stepped in, wearing plain clothes, shoulders drawn high though the morning was clear. Every conversation thinned. He held an envelope. "I didn't come to eat?" Nora stayed near the register. "Then say why." Mercer placed the envelope on the counter. Full statement. Names, dates, altered logs. "I gave a copy to Ms. Price." Helen nodded once. Mercer looked at Mara. "I should have opened the cell." "Yes," Mara said. He flinched more at the quiet answer than he would have at anger. "My mother asked me to tell you," he said. "The porch light still works." Mara turned toward the window. Morning sun touched the note on the glass. Judge Brooks slid a blank page toward Helen. "We can draft emergency procedure today." "No," Mara said. They looked at her. She walked to the register, took a small white placard from beneath it, and wrote slowly with Nora's marker. The tip squeaked on plastic. "Everyone gets served with dignity." Mara taped it beside the coffee menu, low enough for a child to read. Ward stood and adjusted one corner so it hung straight. Outside, A county car passed without slowing. Inside, no one clapped. Sam set the torn cap beside Mercer's envelope and left it there. 3 months later, Mara carried the official letter to her mother's room, folded in the same careful thirds Thomas Ellis had used. Ruth sat by the window with a blue blanket over her knees. Winter had stripped the maple outside. "Is it bad?" Ruth asked. "No." Mara handed it over. The paper trembled once. Detective Thomas Ellis is cleared of all findings of abandonment, misconduct, and voluntary disappearance. Ruth read it twice. Then she reached for the old photograph, the one Ward had protected in the diner. "He came home," Ruth said. Mara sat beside her. "Not the way we wanted." "No." Ruth touched Thomas's face. "But not as a coward." The public report came out the next week. Calvin Rusk was indicted for falsifying records and obstruction related to the Ellis file. Harlan lost his badge after the board found unlawful detention, false reporting, and witness intimidation. Mercer resigned before the vote, then testified in full at the county review. At the diner, nobody cheered when the news played above the pie case. Nora turned the volume down and set coffee in front of Sam Keene. Sam had started driving shorter routes. Every Thursday, he came early, paid cash, and left $1 under the new placard. "Everyone gets served with dignity." "Still straight?" Ward asked one gray afternoon. He stood in the doorway without a uniform, hat in both hands, snow melting on his shoulders. Mara looked at the sign. One corner had curled from the heat of the coffee machine. "Almost," she said. Ward adjusted it carefully. "Almost matters." He took the booth near the last window. Mara brought 2 cups and set one across from him. "You expecting someone?" He looked at the empty seat. "Old habit." She poured. The coffee smelled strong and bitter. Outside, a county cruiser passed at the speed limit, camera light visible beside the mirror. "They're doing the audits?" Ward asked. "Every month. Outside reviewer. Recorded phone calls for detainees. Complaint forms leave town before they touch the chief's desk." "And training?" "Nora says half the department looked sick during the dignity module." Ward nodded. "Good." Mara reached into her apron pocket and placed his old notebook on the table. "You left this." "I meant to." The last page was addressed to her in careful block letters. She did not open it yet. Ward pushed his cup handle toward her. "Your father asked me to tell Ruth he was sorry for being late." Mara swallowed. The diner fan turned overhead, slow and steady. "You can tell her yourself." "I did." "When?" "Yesterday. She said I was 23 years late and still tracked mud on her floor." Mara laughed once, small enough to break. Ward stood after one cup. At the door, he turned back. "Mara." She looked up. "He knew you would ask the right question someday." Her fingers rested on the cover. "I wish he didn't have to count on someday." Ward lowered his eyes. "So do I." After he left, the bell settled softly instead of shaking. Mara opened the notebook. The last page held no confession, only a list in Thomas's handwriting copied by Ward: Ruth's medicine, Mara's school play, Bridge Road, brown envelope, come home before rain. Mara folded the page closed. She placed the restored photograph beside the cooling coffee and turned the cup so its handle faced the empty seat. The spoon did not ring this time. If this story stayed with you, share in the comments whether you have ever seen someone treated as small until the truth finally spoke for them. Send this story to someone who believes dignity should not depend on a uniform, a job title, or who has the loudest voice in the room. And subscribe for more stories about justice, quiet strength, and the kind of change that begins when one person refuses to look away. Every comment, every share, and every new listener helps keep these stories alive for people who need to remember that silence is not always the end.